What is the foundation of our life, or where do we anchor our life? Foundation and anchor is essential, because if our life has no solid foundation, it can just easily collapse. Faith is supposed to be the foundation of life. And faith has many expressions, like what we see in our readings. For example, let us recall the first reading in which a corrupt governor by the name of Shebna was removed by God from his office, and he was replaced by his anointed Eliakim. Why Shebna was removed? Because first, he never had a faith in the Lord. He was only thinking about himself. He was actually building something for himself. He was not building. He was not using his power and authority at the service of God and at the service of people, but more to promote himself. And God would not allow such kind of corruption or abuse. And so he assigned or appointed Eliakim. And Eliakim was appointed by God to act on his behalf, to act like King David, who was more of serving people. And we move to Saint Paul, as he wrote a letter to the Romans. He could only marvel and could only be amazed by the richness and the wisdom and the knowledge of God. We know Saint Paul. Saint Paul was once a Pharisee, and he was knowledgeable, but in spite of his being knowledgeable, he could only affirm how God worked in mysterious ways, how God would intervene in the life of his people so that the people would remain close to him. This is also an expression of faith, a faith in which there is the acknowledgement of the power of God, not so much affirming the power of man, who can be most likely get corrupted. And now we have the story of Jesus with the disciples at Caesarea Philippi. It's a very good setting, because you know that Caesarea Philippi is considered to be a place of resting. It's just like a place where where Jesus brought his disciples to have a kind of, in our terms today, would be a day of recollection, perhaps a day of retreat, a day for silence. But you see how Jesus took advantage of that moment to ask the disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" And the response was coming from Peter, speaking on behalf of the disciples. "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus affirmed that. "This has not come from you, Peter. This has come from the Father, who revealed it to you." This is so important for Peter and for the disciples, that Jesus is building a community founded on faith in him, confession in him. It's so important, because there will be a time when the disciples would be facing difficulties, hardships. In fact, even when Jesus ascended to heaven, everything was not perfect. Still, there were tensions happening among the disciples, but it was the faith of the disciples that made them into a community. Faith in Jesus. There is something that put them together. Something that made them to realize that we are not superior over each other, but Jesus is the center of our life. Again, let us ask ourselves, what is the foundation of our life? What is the foundation of the family? What is the foundation of married life? We can go on. The foundation of a community. If our foundation is on faith, or our community is built on faith, we are assured that notwithstanding all our differences, we can always put our personal differences aside, and we will be guided by our collective faith, by our common faith. In like manner, that any family, there are differences that happen between husband and wife, with the children, especially if the children are grown-ups. There are differences, but if the relationship is built on faith, faith in God, faith in each other, we can be assured that the life of the family, notwithstanding all the differences, notwithstanding the hardship and difficulties encountered along the way, will always be strong. They will always be together. And that reminds us of the beautiful words coming from the late Father Peyton, the founder of Holy Family Crusade. That a family that prays together stays together. A family that is built on faith will always be together. The moment the faith is gone, we will see how the family will start to disintegrate. The moment faith is gone, we will witness how a community will slowly disintegrate. Because it is the faith that puts us together. It is the faith that will enable us to make use of our talents, of our gifts, to include our positions, our authority, to be of the service of God and to be at the service of humanity. Let us learn from the humility of Jesus. And let us also learn from the humility of the disciples who learned this humility later on, after witnessing the expression of humility of Jesus. The humility that made them to be faithful in Jesus and faithful to each other. A faith that builds the community. A faith that builds our true identity as followers of Jesus.